6 dinners, nothing over 30 minutes. These recipes are foolproof. I will give you all of the measurements, but honestly, you could eyeball all of these ingredients and this will still come out tasting delicious. And not just delicious for you, delicious if you have kids. Everyone will love these meals. They're crowd pleasers. And no matter how large your family is, if it's just you, if it's a couple of you, if it's 8 of you, you can make this, you can put it in the fridge, you can heat it up later. Trust me, you're gonna love these recipes. Okay, so this first dish is so simple. It's actually very healthy and very tasty, and you can whip it up fast. So this is a salmon chickpea salad. And if you don't have all the ingredients I'm using, you can absolutely improvise. I'll give you some ideas on what to do. But first, you're going to put together some salmon and chickpeas. I am using wild-caught salmon. That's the salmon that you want. That's the only salmon that you want. The other one is farm-raised, and it's kind of full of dye, and it has a lot more fat than a steak. So you want the wild-caught. And then the chickpeas, if you don't have those, you can use any kind of beans. Here I'm making some broth, and what I'm doing is I'm boiling water, and then I'm going to add bulgur. So I'm doing 2 cups of bulgur to the water just to cook the bulgur. You could do quinoa, you could do rice, you could do pasta, whatever you like. And then here I'm going to chop up some veggies. So like I said, I'm going to give you all the ingredients in the link below and in the pinned comment, but this is a really forgiving recipe. You can just kind of put these things together. I used 4 large shredded carrots. I don't like carrots raw unless they're shredded. And then I added up some lettuce, some chopped tomatoes. I did a heart of romaine lettuce. I also did a big handful of basil, and I mixed it all together. There's the basil. I actually grew that myself. If you don't have basil, though, it doesn't matter. You don't need to add it. And then I mix this all together, and I add my salad dressing. I have a salad dressing that I made. You could use store-bought salad dressing. It really does not matter, whatever kind of salad dressing you like. And you just add that and you mix it. Here I'm chopping up these tomatoes. We got them at our local farmer's market. You could just get cherry tomatoes at the store, however you want to do it. So anyway, super simple. I'm making this in a big mixing bowl. I add the hot bulgur to it, and then I just mix it up. This is so good. So you can eat this hot, or you can put it in your fridge and eat it later. You could eat it for days. It doesn't have to be eaten right away, and it tastes better, in my opinion, when it's cold. So I like to do that. Okay, the second dish is going to be mac and cheese. Now, I make this every week, and maybe you think mac and cheese would be hard, but it's one of the easiest things, and it tastes 100 times better than any boxed mac and cheese, and it's definitely cheaper. So to start, I'm making a roux. You just mix some butter and your flour, and you make a roux, and this is what's going to help to thicken your sauce for the cheese. And this is what I start with is making this. And so then to the roux, once I've cooked that for a minute, I add milk. And I'm going to add some other ingredients that I'll talk about in a second. But while that's coming up to a heat, I'm going to shred up some cheese. I shred my own cheese. Very simple, but you don't want to use store-bought shredded cheese. You just want to make your own. And I do 4 cups. Now I'm making the broth because in addition to the 2 cups of milk that I've added to my roux, I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth. And you can use any kind of broth. You can use veggie broth, whatever kind of broth you like. I'm also adding some seasoning. I will put all the measurements below, but I've been eyeballing this, and I just kind of add that. Now I'm going to add half of the cheese, so essentially like 2 cups of the shredded cheese, and then I'm just going to turn the heat off, and that's going to be my sauce for when the pasta's ready. Now I'm going to make a box of pasta, and you can do this all at the same time. I make a whole box. I don't like those mac and cheese recipes that are like, use 2 cups of pasta and here's how you can make it. I need to use the whole box. And once the pasta is cooked al dente, I add it to the sauce, mix it up, and then I'm going to put it into a casserole dish. I have this 9x13 Pyrex casserole dish, and I put half of the pasta in there, and then I put half of the cheese, so about a cup of that leftover cheese. Then I add the other half of the pasta on top, and then I add the remaining cup of cheese to the top of it. Now, you could put breadcrumbs with some melted butter on top if you'd like. I skipped that step. I sometimes do it, sometimes don't. Sometimes my son doesn't like it, so I just opted to skip it. So I'm going to assemble that, and that is ready to go into the oven. What you're going to do is you are going to cook this at 350 degrees and it's going to get nice and thick and delicious, and your kids are going to love it, and it's really good even reheated. Okay, this next recipe is basil, and this is going to be a nut-free basil. And if you've got fresh basil that you're growing, it cannot get it any easier than this recipe. You can make this in advance as well. You can make it up to a week in advance. So I'm doing 4 cups of basil, and the way I'm making it is you cut off your leaves. You don't want stems in this recipe. You just want the leaves, and we're going to add some other ingredients to it. You see, I've got the salt, I've got my Parmesan cheese, and my olive oil, my garlic. You do need a food processor for this. I can't really imagine how you'd make it without one. When you do this, only put the leaves into the food processor. I have messed this up before, and I put the stems in, and it's terrible. You end up with these like very tough little pieces of basil, and it's not easy to eat. So you add all your basil to your food processor, and then I'm also going to add a clove of garlic. You see, I did that, and then I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to add the olive oil to get it to a good consistency. Also want to add the Parmesan cheese. Again, I will put all the measurements below, but a lot of times I like to eyeball it. Just know the consistency of the sauce that you want to get, and it will all come together once that olive oil goes in and you get it all together. And then you've got your sauce. And literally with this sauce, I stuck it in this jelly jar and I put a top on it. And I am just going to use this for later on. You know, you don't have to use it right away. You could use it on pasta, which is what I do. You could use it as a dip. You could dip your veggies in it for bread, whatever you want to do. Okay, this next recipe, I'm going to show you how to make chicken enchiladas. I make the sauce myself. I don't use store-bought sauce. And once again, for this sauce, you need to do a roux again. So what I did here is I added some oil and flour to make the roux. And now I'm making some broth again. You can buy broth already made. I just like to make my own. So I've got my roux going, and you're just going to cook that for about a minute and get that flour all nice and cooked up. And then you're going to add the chicken broth that you just made. And it doesn't have to be chicken. That's just kind of what I had on hand. Then you're going to add the other ingredients into this, and it's going to get thick. This is tomato paste. If you don't have tomato paste, you can use tomato sauce. You can use ketchup if you're desperate. I mean, you can skip it. My tomato paste was frozen, which is why it looks weird. But then I'm also adding other ingredients like paprika, chili powder, salt, pepper. This is going to give you that really good chicken enchilada flavor. So then next thing, you take your enchiladas, and I actually layered this like a casserole. It was much easier than rolling these up. And then I put on some shredded chicken. I made my chicken in the slow cooker, but you can use rotisserie chicken, however you want to do it. And then you just layer it like lasagna. I layer on the cheese, layer on the enchilada sauce, and then do another layer again. And the way that this works is you're going to layer this, and it's going to be like a lasagna, and you're going to bake it, and then you just cut it like a lasagna and eat it. And the kids love it. If your kids love Mexican food, I mean, what is there not to love about chicken, cheese, bread, sauce? I can't think of anything, right? They're going to love this. And so you keep layering it and you finish it up. I think I managed to get several layers in, and then I just put the enchilada sauce all the way over the top. And then I'm going to stick it in the oven. Again, super simple. You just bake this for about 20 minutes, because this is 30-minute recipes. 20 minutes at 350. It's not a science. You know, you're just melting the cheese really and kind of getting everything nice and hot. And I'm telling you, when this comes out, it's delicious. You can eat it straight out of the oven. No need to let it cool or anything like that. But it's really good. And my kids like this a lot. And I will say this, you could freeze this if you don't finish it, or you could eat it throughout the week, whatever you want to do. But it's just an easier way to make enchiladas, and it's delicious. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this dish is my chicken and potato soup. And I put a lot of vegetables in it. So the first step is you're going to chop up these veggies. I've got 4 stalks of celery, about 6 carrots. I've got an onion. And what you're going to do, you're going to saute the onion in some olive oil. That's going to be step 1. I like to use olive oil for all of my cooking, if you haven't guessed by now. Then you put your onion in, you're going to put your chopped carrots in there, you're going to put your celery in there, and you're going to saute everything until it's soft. Does not take long. Then I add a little bit of paprika, some adobo. My kids love this adobo, so I put it in a lot of things. It's really good for chicken and veggies. And then I'm going to make a little more beef broth because, once again, I actually use the bone broth, but you could use any kind of broth you want. And I'm going to add this broth to my softened vegetables. I think I added about 8 or 9 cups. Again, the recipe will be down there. And then I'm going to add my potatoes. And I'm going to simmer this until the potatoes are cooked through. You definitely want the potatoes to be nice and soft, ready to eat. You just kind of simmer that up. And once the potatoes are done, you're ready to go. I added a splash of half and half to give it some nice creaminess. And that's it. Oh, and the chicken. I add some chicken. I think I added about 2 cups of shredded chicken. This was the chicken I mentioned I made in the slow cooker. I made a couple of pounds of chicken, and it was, I just kept it in the fridge, and then I used it throughout the week to make meals. I also added a little bit of poultry seasoning to give it a nice Thanksgiving flavor. And there's the soup. It was delicious. 2 of my kids didn't like it, but that's whatever, their own issues. It was delicious. Okay, this next one. This one I make every week, I would say. This is my lentil stew. I always have a pot of it in the fridge. This has the same base as the soup, essentially. So, the entire onion sauteed in olive oil, and then you want to add your other veggies. I think I did here 5 or 6 chopped carrots, 2 to 4 ribs of celery. I also like to use salt and pepper. Sometimes I add 3 to 5 cloves of chopped garlic. If you don't like garlic, you can skip it. And you don't have to use the veggies I'm using. I think I recommend the onion, but you don't have to use the other veggies. You could use whatever veggies that you like and that your family enjoys. So again, it's a very loose recipe that you can customize for how you like it. So once I kind of get this all going, again, I'm going to be sauteing all of these veggies until they're soft. And that just takes maybe 8 minutes, I would say, total once I get everything into the pot. Now, what I'm going to do is to these veggies, then I'm going to add 10 cups of bone broth. And I'm going to add a bag of lentils. It's about 2 pounds of dried lentils. You could use canned. I like to use dried ones. And then I also add in some spices. I have salt and pepper. I like to add chili powder, smoked paprika, all the different delicious spices. And then I let this just simmer, boil, probably about 15-ish minutes until the lentils are cooked through. And essentially, the lentils don't take that long. They don't take as long as beans or anything like that. And then once everything is cooked, I will actually, in many cases, throw in a bag of frozen veggies. It could be cauliflower. It could be peas. I'm using broccoli here because that's what we had on hand. But I just really like to pack in the veggies and make this a really healthy stew. And once this is done, then I add some olive oil on the top just to give it a little bit of a nice flavor. I just do that at the end and I serve it. And you could eat this with, crusty bread. You could have a side of potatoes, whatever you like. You can kind of decide, but this is a delicious stew. And like I said, I have this always in my fridge. If you come to my house and this stew isn't in my fridge, I would be shocked because we eat this every week. Okay, now on to tacos. And the first step is you are going to make your own taco seasoning. So I'm just showing you all of the different spices that go into my taco seasoning, and I will leave them all below. But it's things like paprika, salt, pepper, chili powder, onion powder, very simple ingredients that you most likely have on hand, and also some garlic powder. I think I also forgot to add cumin. You want to add 2 teaspoons of cumin as well. And again, you can omit any of these spices, but this is the seasoning mix for tacos that I find works the best. This replaces those yellow packets of taco seasoning that you can buy at the store. And trust me, this is not only so much cheaper, it is so much healthier. There are no preservatives and chemicals. There's no MSG. This is just pure. You make it, and you do it the same way that you do the store-bought one. It's just you make it at home. So anyway, so this is the mix that I like. This is what I find best, and I make this every time. And once you make it, I use the whole thing. You could double, triple, quadruple the recipe. There's the cumin I mentioned, and you can store this. You can store it for months, I would imagine. These are just mixing spices. I've also got some chopped veggies here. It's just some tomatoes and some lettuce. No big deal. The kids like to have that on their tacos. And then I'm going to shred up some cheese. I think I did about 2 cups of cheese. Again, this is just going to be sprinkled on top of the tacos. So make as much as your family likes. There's no real hard and fast rule here. This is just the added mix-ins and additions that you're going to have for your taco. We also did some avocado. Not everyone in my family loves avocado. My husband and I love it. One of my sons loves it. It's another good thing. Some nice healthy fats to add to the recipe. Okay, so now it's time to brown the meat. I'm telling you, this is the simplest recipe. It's like a little bit of prep and then cooking for like 5 seconds. So putting in a little bit of olive oil, and I'm going to cook this ground turkey. Again, I like the organic ground turkey. You could use ground chicken. You could use ground beef, which is what a lot of people do. It is entirely up to you. There is no hard and fast rule on what kind of meat you want to use. I will tell you though, we use the turkey, and my kids they cannot tell the difference if it's beef or not. I think because it's seasoned so well, it's hard to tell if it's beef or turkey. It's not dry. I'm going to show you how to do the seasoning so that it's not dry, because that's another key. So we're going to add all the seasoning that we made at the top of this recipe, and then we're going to brown it a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some water. I add 3/4 of a cup of water, and then I simmer it for a few minutes. That just infuses all those delicious spices into the meat. It turns into like a little bit of a gravy, and it's just the perfect taco seasoning and the perfect inside of your taco. And I have to tell you, when I make this meat, and then I sometimes use the store-bought seasonings, my kids are like, ew, why does this taste like this? And they don't like it as much. Here's the final product. These were delicious. My kids gobbled them up. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I hope you love these recipes as much as I do. I would love to hear if you made them, what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in my next video. Bye-bye.